Okay. Thank you, Mr. BevCam. Okay, are we ready? Ready as we'll ever be? Am I in? Okay. Just getting into the Zoom meeting so I can share Ms. Sherburne's documents for the meeting tonight. Oh, no. Oh, no. Sorry. I accidentally joined with audio. I'll come back in, Rachel. I'm sorry. Oh, it's been a day. It's been a day with no power. Rachel, will you let me back in? I promise to not join with audio this time. No, joining. You want to join? Okay. Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Tonight is October 27th, 2021. Welcome to the Beverly School Committee's Finance and Facilities Subcommittee meeting. We are meeting this evening in a hybrid model using a remote meeting application provided at no cost to our district with captioning. Oh, I do see the captioning on the bottom. Great. Had to look. I didn't see it there for a second. This allows for remote participation and for public access to the open portions of the meeting. We're also recording tonight and being broadcast and streamed by BevCam. Thank you, BevCam. This is allowed because on June 16th, 2021, the governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Among other things, this bill allows public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until April 1st, 2022. This specifically suspends the need for a quorum and the chair to be physically present, although we are this evening, and asks our body to use technical means to allow safe public access. We would encourage viewers to utilize BevCam streaming options this evening if possible. Okay, so this is F&F, and we don't have any public portions, although we do have members of the public serving. And so we're going to go around the room and do a roll call because we do have some people on the Zoom meeting as well. Okay, so school committee members on F&F in the room. Ms. Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Coelho.
Here.
Myself. Our city council representative, Mr. Rotundo. Our members from the public who are representatives, Mr. Manzo.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Ducharme.
Here.
Thank you. Also in the room before we go to whoever's online, we have our recording secretary, Ms. Karan.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Trocek.
Here.
Jean Sherburne.
Here.
The queen of the beans. Okay. We also have in the room handling Zoom for us, the chair of the school committee, Rachel A. Bell. Online, I see Christina Leal, head of food services.
Hello.
Thank you. Dr. Morgan.
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Citizen Rep Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Just seeing if there's anybody else. That's it, right, Rach?
Right.
Fantastic. All right. So that's everybody we have this evening. So we'll get started. Our first order of business on our agenda, thank you for sharing that on the screen, Ms. Abel, is approval of meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was held on September 22nd, 2021. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept those meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. In a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Manzo. I especially appreciate that you have a pumpkin-colored mask on this evening. And does anybody have any comments, corrections, anything? Mr. Silva, I'm going to try to keep looking at the computer to see if you raise your hand. You also can use the Zoom hand-raising thing, please. I also want to say I appreciate that both you and Ms. Ducharme are here today, even though there's the big Ward 4 the big meeting about National Grid that affects Ward 4, and I know you both live there, and so I appreciate the fact that you took time this evening to come here instead of perhaps going there. All right, I don't see any hands raised for comments or corrections. All those in favor of accepting the set of meeting minutes? Oh, I have to do a roll call because Mr. Silva's online. Mr. Silva, we'll start with you.
Here.
How about yes or no on the meeting minutes?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Manzo?
Yes.
Ms. Ducharme? Yes. Ms. Robinson?
I was not here. Should I vote on the meeting
You
minutes?
may abstain.
I'll abstain.
Thank you. Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So let's see. I have to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1 in soccer score land. That was for you, Mr. Manzo. All right. Next, we have the report of the buildings and grounds from Mike Collins, our Commissioner of Public Services, and Bob Shiroli. Thank you, because I was going to put an extra little, maybe I was going to make that A long. Our Director of the Public Schools Division. That report was in your packet. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the B&G report? Yes, Mr.
I
Manzo?
just only want to, just to let people know in the public that it sounds like we're hiring. So, so if you're interested in custodial arts or I guess what other positions in the school district, we're looking for people.
You're not going to put any more of a plug in there for how wonderful the school system is?
Goes without saying.
Okay. All right, so our next item on our agenda is Ms. Sherburne, who's going to talk about a whole bunch of things, and I'm going to do my best to download those things and share them on the screen for you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
What item would you like to start with?
The Finance and Facilities Administration update.
Okay,
We have Ms. Leal online that will be talking about part of it.
we're opening that. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to maybe scoot our people over to the side. And, all right. How about
So
can
I-
we- I'm moving my docking station. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm ready.
So I'm just welcoming the committee to October 27th, that we're hybrid and remote, and a little fall. It does feel like winter today with the cold rain. So we're going to give a update on the transportation electric fleet. I knew I was going to stumble on that word. Food service update, sharing table, question of whether it's a policy or a procedure and where are we, and then FY22 financial reports. We'll go to the next slide, and I will talk about this. Is this the transportation electric fleet? We will be receiving a second bus in the summer of 2022. It's similar to the first electric bus that we received. That's a second bus was acquired through a grant opportunity with Highland Electric. With the Highland Electric grant funding came an educational component. Therefore, what we're going to be having is professional development will be offered on November 2nd for 30 of our K-12 teachers. The day will be spent learning about the electric bus transportation, sustainability, energy, and will include a design challenge. The district is in partnership, so we wanted to make sure the Finance and Facilities Committee was aware that the district is in partnership with the city in exploring options to increase the number of electric buses in the fleet. We continue to review budgetary options with a goal of converting a percentage of the fleet from diesel to electric in the upcoming years. So we have started some conversations about that, but we don't have anything to report on it right now. What will happen is we will figure out how much we can do with our budgetary constraints, or where we can go. And then we will come back to the Finance and Facilities with an update. What does have to happen is, with Chapter 30B, you have to go out to have an RFP, which is a request for proposal, and goes out so that any company that is able to bid on such item would send it. It would go through the purchasing department in the city, and then we would have our say input on it in conjunction with, we'd also be discussing what funding we'd have or need.
Okay,
Did you want to add anything?
No, I think, I mean, it's just important to know we're committed to increasing the fleet and making, wherever we can and wherever it's feasible. Jean and I spent time, we kept calling about a sustainability plan for the buses, but then sustainability means a couple of different things in that. So we're really thinking about as buses, as the leases for our diesel buses fall off, as equipment is aging out in the fleet, how can we and at what pace can we replace it with electric? We do know that the electric is certainly been a great opportunity for Beverly to be part of having electric buses, and so we're working through looking at budgets. We met with the city, with Bryant, and with with other people, Arena, and other people to sort of flesh out what is feasible and where are we. So it's just a work in progress, but I think we wanted everyone to be aware that we were in those conversations so that it didn't take anyone by surprise if we come forward with a proposal of some kind.
okay, fantastic. So for anybody who doesn't know, Arena is our sustainability director at on the city side. Arena
Keith.
Keefe. Okay, there's our last name. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions on this particular slide? Yes, Ms. Ducharme.
So I attended,
You're on.
thank you. So I attended the electric vehicle event, and so the kids and I got a chance to tour the electric vehicle and spent some time talking to Sean Leach, and I'm forgetting if anybody remembers the organization that he works for, across the street at the Cumming Center.
Green
Green
Beverly?
It wasn't Green Beverly. So I guess he was really informative, and I loved one of the, first of all, he showed us where some infrastructures, like they built the power station for the electric bus that we have now with the intention of expanding long-term so that we're not reinventing the wheel and running into problems and spending more money in the long term, which I really appreciated, the sort of forward thinking. I also really loved that he said that he talked about the electric bus as sort of a member of the community, and I loved that he said that in the event of a power outage, that it could be used in the city as a source of power. And I was just totally curious because of coincidental timing today, if we happen to have use of that opportunity today, if anybody here in the room knows by any chance.
We didn't, there was nothing that was done today
Okay, cool.
specific to that.
Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, Mr. Silva, I see your hand up.
I was just wondering about the cost of the buses compared to the diesel. I'm not familiar with the
Yeah,
cost.
it's there's a differential in the cost, and I think that's one of the things that we're trying to work out. To date, the two buses that we have acquired, we've gotten through with some grant programs and in partnership with the city. So at this point, those two buses are in our fleet at the same rate that we were. I think a slightly higher cost to the schools, but not much, right?
We're not paying for them, the city is
But the
paying
city's,
for
but
them.
the differential
The
is
cost
still the
is,
cost
yes.
differential right now. But there's so many options. There's lease to own. We lease to own our diesels. So there's a lot of factors that go into what the different costs would be. And then there's as you transition, there's the lower cost of maintenance. There's no fuel costs. There's a variety of other things. And in the two
Is there a
grants.
breakdown? Is there a breakdown of that just to
Well, that's
understand?
what we're working
what
on. Yeah,
what that
so
looks like?
we don't have one. That is exactly what we're doing. They're looking at various iterations, looking at our budget lines. That's the work that's ongoing right now. So that's what we're going to be coming back to the committee with when we have more information on that. So that is the work that we're doing. Those are good questions.
We had some of that information when we chose to get the first bus.
Correct. But we're
so
looking now at, I think that what we're trying to examine, if we have a fleet of 50 buses, what would it take to replace, and are we only looking at replacing our C buses, or are we talking about vans? Are we talking about mid-size? There's so many different moving parts, and so we're working together to try to say what is feasible, what is, how aggressive can we be? And where is the line in the sand where we've gone from, we're at the place where we're following it in our budget and we're incurring higher costs. So that's sort of the work that we're doing.
Right, I just want to mention that because we reviewed some of that data in the past, Mr. Silva, if you were really interested, we could dig backwards and find at which meeting we approved the first electric school bus, and then we could have some of that information available for you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And so my question, any other questions in the room before I call on myself? Oh, yes, Mr. Rotundo.
Madam Chair, I just want to make a statement that we actually, as a city, sold back some of the energy, some of the electricity produced, so we actually have sold back to the grid. So it's something that's unique for Beverly to be able to do that right now. So that's a positive as well.
And from where are we selling our electricity back?
We sell it back to the grid.
No, which generations, means or sites are generating more?
So when the solar panels and collect the energy, whatever the buses don't use, it goes back, whatever excess is. So we've sold it back, so it goes back
We're in
to
a
the.
plus situation.
Correct.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, and my question, okay, yeah, did you have your hand up, Ms.
I
Robinson?
just wanted to make that comment. I think it's great that the educators are going to be able to see the bus and, I just think about like the really cool professional development that's available in our community. And I can picture some science teachers really bringing that back to the classroom.
And we particularly targeted the STEM teachers and the science teachers, but it was open to everybody if someone had an interest, so we didn't limit it to that, but we did particularly encourage them to take part in that, so.
So on election day, I might have to come away from the polls and sneak into that professional development myself. And I have to say too, when my children were little, the big thing to do would be to come up to the solar field. I'm pointing the wrong way, I think. And the children would make little ovens, right? And they would cook hot dogs in the oven off the solar, off the sun. So that's very cool. My question on this slide is your wording here, Ms. Sherburne, at the very last sentence, a percentage of the fleet. And is that what you just basically said, Dr. Trocheck, about we just really don't know at this point in time?
I think what we're doing right now is laying out different iterations. What if we wanted 50% by 2025 and 100% by 2030? That would be super aggressive, probably. But what if what is doable? Is it 30% by 2025? What does that look like? But hopefully, I think what we would like to do is establish a goal so that we can keep striving toward it. And I think when you have something laid out like that, it becomes more doable. I will say that, we are one of the only districts around that has any electric buses. The fact that we're getting a second is really super exciting. And there's a lot of really innovative things that are happening because of that. So it's a really great opportunity for Beverly. And again, I think with all of the combined work with the different committees across the city and, and in partnership with the city, we're really moving in a good direction for that, so.
Fantastic. All right, we're scrolling. Yes, do you have another question, Ms. Ducharme? Scrolling.
Okay, so now we'll ask Ms. Leal to join us, and she can talk about her, on her slides.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is an update on food service. And as always, I kind of like to start with our participation, where we are, how many we're serving. What I did is I looked at 2019, which is the most similar year I could compare to. As you can see, our breakfast numbers are down from that year. However, it is up from when I presented last time in September. So we are slowly increasing. Obviously, we want that number much higher, and that is one of our goals to work on. But our lunch participation is significantly higher than it was back in 2019 at all schools, except for at Centerville, it's a little less, and at the high school, it's pretty flat. But there were really some major jumps, like at Hannah was at 34%, and we're now serving almost 56% participation for lunch. So great jumps with all of the elementary schools and the middle schools, so we are on the right trend there. For the next slide, I have seconds, please. And this was kind of brought about every day. My high school and middle school manager comes to the office to return money or bring money in. And I'm always like, oh, you guys were so close, 550, almost hit 800. And they always say to me, did you look at the seconds? And so what seconds are is students that actually purchase another meal. Even though all meals are free for students, it's one meal, and then after that, they can purchase a meal for $3. We have always done it. We did it back in 2019. And as you can see, the first 33 days in 2019 at the middle school, we had 404 seconds. This year, we have 632. So it's a significant jump of over 200 in both schools. So the kids are buying meals even after they are free. So I just wanted to share that because their numbers are even more than what I say because of seconds each day.
Ms. Leal, would you
So,
like people to
yes.
hold their questions till the end? And we'll scroll back to a given slide, or do you want to take them per slide?
Whichever is easier for you.
We're gonna take questions per slide. Yes, Mr. Manzo?
Okay.
Just a question about the second lunches. Are those students bringing those lunches home, or are they eating them at school?
Nope, they are eating them at school. So a lot of times we'll see it like the high school, we have panini sandwiches. Some kids will grab 2 paninis right at the beginning because they're going to want 2 sandwiches or 2 slices of pizza. So they are eating them at school.
Anybody else have a question before I call on myself? I'm wondering, Ms. Leal, if you have any theories about the increase in second lunches and/or if you, well, let me stop there. Do you have any theories about why there's such an increase in children asking for a second lunch?
I have at the middle school, especially because students do have money on their account and we're not serving snacks. So if they had money before and they used to get a bag of chips and a Rice Krispie treat and their lunch, they no longer can get that at this time. All they can get is waters. The high school, I'm not sure because we have the same options, probably even more options than we had in 2019. So I'm not quite sure on the high school, but I definitely think the snack plays a role at the middle school.
All right, and my next question is around the serving size, and what is the difference of a serving size of an elementary lunch compared to a middle school lunch compared to a high school lunch?
So it's all based on calories. So in our menu software, we put all the calories into the program, and it's more on calories as well as components of a meal, meaning grains or protein or vegetables. And so we have such a large offering at the high schools that they end up taking that they can take more, and they're required to take 2 grains as opposed to only 1 grain at an elementary school. So I don't know if that really answers the question or.
It answers it well enough.
Okay.
Some concerns have been vocalized around whether the older children are getting more food. And so, you know, my theory would have been before hearing your answer that perhaps they needed to buy a second lunch because there just wasn't enough in the first lunch. But if in fact they're getting a calorically scaled up lunch, then that's fantastic.
Yep.
Okay, are you ready to scroll? Any other questions in the room before we scroll? Oh, or Mr. Silva, is your hand up?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Scrolling.
So this next one is kind of our biggest challenge that we are facing right now, and that is supply chain. I'm sure most of you have heard some of the struggles that we are experiencing. So I kind of wanted to do a little deeper dive into everything. And the one on this screen that really captures is the woman that is hugging the compostable trays. That was me this morning when I got chicken in, because for 2 weeks I've not been able to get Tyson chicken, and it came in today. So I was very excited and hugging my box of chicken. So these are just some images. And if we can go down in the slides, I was at a School and Nutrition Association conference last week. And Desi actually talked, and this is 4 slides directly from the Department of Education's talk on supply chain and some of the struggles that we are experiencing. So their reasoning of how we got here is labor shortages, manufacturers, the products were canceled, causing shortages, warehouse disruptions, truck drivers, product shortages. So when we shut down, school nutrition has such a distinct product line that they need, whether it's whole grain, low sodium, and then all of a sudden we kind of stopped having to order, so production was cut. And now that we're all back and needing it, they really can't catch up. And one of the biggest struggles too that we have is we're finding that there are truck drivers, but there aren't pickers in the warehouse. So there's a shortage in supplies, they have a shortage in truck drivers, and mostly shortage in packing the trucks. So some of the things that we were instructed to do is to communicate with our vendors, our distributors, expanding our delivery windows. Today, I got a drop-off only at the high school, and then I packed my beautiful refrigerated freezer truck, and I'm going to all the elementary schools tomorrow because it was more important that I got the food at one location, and then I'll distribute it to all the schools just because I just wanted to make sure I got it in. So we're reducing the stops. We did the same thing yesterday as well.
And that's
So
the truck
is-
that we just bought this past year.
Yes.
Look at that smile.
This next slide was huge for me when they went over it at the conference, is some of the emergency procurement findings. So there's such strict guidelines on purchasing for school nutrition as far as going out to bid and what vendors we can use. And they kind of put in a emergency circumstances. So that is how I was able to get chicken today and get pizza, because I did not go with our preferred vendor that received our bid as a collaborative that I'm part of. So I was able to go outside. It's a vendor still approved by the city, still approved that we have gotten stuff from, but normally I would not be able to purchase all my groceries from them. Because of this emergency procurement, I was, and so now we have some food that we normally would not have been able to get in. They are also expanded the Buy American provision, understanding that there is costs associated with having to always purchase Buy American, but we're still definitely trying to meet all the procurement rules. The other waivers that DESI has put forth is making sure we're following our vegetable subgroups, making sure that 100% whole grain, because a lot of the distributors weren't purchasing and making the products that we mostly use, they couldn't get it to us. So that is one of DESI is now saying that certain waivers we can kind of get away from, and there's no fiscal action for missing some of the components on that food tray, because they understand it's a nationwide crisis right now with supply chain. So those were the slides that kind of really stuck out with at the meeting last week.
All right, does anybody have any
Yeah.
questions about any of those slides before we scroll on? Oh, Mr. Silva's hand is up. Yes, Mr. Silva?
Just wondering if there is space in the freezer for you to sort of compensate for some of that by increasing or having storage of certain products that you know are going to be tough to receive.
Yep, so we have tried. The problem that we're running into is, in a few slides down, is our deliveries are about 5 to 6 days behind schedule. So even though we're trying to order extra, they're so far behind. And then the other problem is, when they come, we don't know what we're getting. So I may have ordered 10 cases of chicken, and all it will say is, please reorder. And they don't sub anything in the replacement.
Okay.
So I'm trying, and I have this beautiful freezer truck that I can also use, but it's just a matter of getting it in the door. The slide above this with the produce, as I was doing this presentation, this came in from our produce company. And due to heat and rain, severe loss of lettuces and romaine crops. So they're experiencing a 40% crop loss, and prices and shortages expect to go up in the next few weeks. Shortly after that, I got an email from the same produce company saying our delivery is going to be coming at 4:00 in the afternoon. So thank you to the facilities crew that actually opens and lets the deliveries come in when they end up coming in that late. So this is our website, and I do have a letter right on the home page of our website asking families to be patient, trying to understand some of the challenges that we are going with supply chain. Just yesterday, I on the menu page of our website, I put in big red letters, here is a weekly menu, because I unfortunately do have to adjust the menu. We're finding more frequently now that we've kind of gotten more into the school year, and it's not a matter of all elementary schools serving this. Every school is unfortunately having to serve something a little different. So on the menu tab, I do have a weekly menu that lists all the schools, what they will be offering that week. So what does this mean? Do we have food? Yes, we have food, and we're feeding all the students. Are we serving what's on the menu? We're doing our best. We have to make changes, and we do, and we're making sure that we have complete meals. Are we offering milk, fruit, and vegetables? Yes, we are, every day at school, at every school. We do have a second choice at every single school as well. Is there an end in sight? Unknown. Desi did tell us to anticipate this for the entire school year. Have costs increased? They have. The chicken today, I paid more for it, but I was able to get it. So I don't care as long as I was able to get it, but it was more than I normally would have paid with my normal vendor. Do we know what items we are getting? Nope. Delivery day is always a surprise to see what I will be getting and what we won't be receiving. So where do we go from here? We continue to feed the students. A big thank you to Mrs. Oliver over at the middle school because we are ditching the bags starting Monday, November 8th. We will be returning to pre-COVID lunch service at the middle school, so we are super excited for that. The lunch service at the high school continues to go really well. We implemented a dual PIN security system on our vending machines at the high schools. So all parents of high school students received a letter with both PIN numbers. We're still working on determining what the elementary schools' lunches will look like as we have more colder days than warmer days coming up. And we are really working on increasing our breakfast participation throughout the district. Any questions?
Mr. Manzo?
Just a clarification, Christina. So pre-COVID lunch means that students in serving lines with trays, that's what we're talking about?
So, yep, at the middle school, there is 2 serving lines. So those will be the hot lunch of the day, going through that, food served on trays. And then the grab and go stations at the middle school, we'll have pizza daily as well as chicken sandwiches daily for students to take.
I'm looking for other, yes, Ms. Ducharme?
This is really helpful, first of all, so thank you. I know that you try to probably create as much consistency as possible, so I know that given the struggles that you have, this probably sounds like a strange question, but are you, and I know I'm really excited to hear about the sharing tables. Are you experiencing any food waste in an effort to, like, if you only get so many oranges and like so many carrots, like, are you having to mix up what you're able to give to kids, and then do you have leftovers that you're not able to use? Does that question kind of make sense? Like,
It does. We actually, after last year when we had to put everything in the bags, we saw a lot of waste last year. This year we could revert back to an offer versus serve model, meaning the students could take the carrots or they didn't have to take the carrots as long as they met the 3 component requirements for lunch. So we put out carrots and cucumbers. They're not required to take them. Some do, some don't. I like to believe that if they're taking them, they're eating them, because it is not required. So we don't see, I shouldn't say that because the kids go out to the playground, so I'm not sure the waste once they go out to the playground. But those cucumbers that weren't taken, we can use the next day. So we kind of try and do our ordering so we're not wasting, if that makes sense.
it does, thanks.
All right, I'm looking for more hands. Okay, I don't see any. Ms. Leal, as always, it's fantastic when you come and present to us. So thank you for that. I know there have been a lot of questions in the community about the meals, specifically about the food shortages. So it's great to be able to get this information out to everybody.
And we're going to
Absolutely.
keep her on for our next subject.
Fantastic.
And
Shall
I'm
I
not
scroll?
sure, yes, if you scroll, I'm not sure if I did give it so you can, I think so you can open those links.
You want me to click right on there?
So the top one is the sharing table is our guidance from the Department of Ed, and I'm just not sure if that will open because I did do it as a PDF. I'm not sure if it'll open for you.
Okay, so it says no. It said no. Number 1 said no.
Okay.
Number 2, let's try.
So I can talk it and then,
No.
yep.
Dr. C, are you thinking you're going to open it?
I have it open, I just don't know.
You're not in the
Can't take
Zoom?
BevCam off.
Right, yeah.
right?
So,
Oh, I could share it if you'd like. If you want to let me share.
Yes.
I'm not in the Zoom, though.
You want to get in the Zoom?
I can get in the Zoom.
so while we're trying to do that, I can talk about what the question came forth to me was, is the share table a policy or a procedure? So what we did is we, looked and searched back to, as you know, we were starting doing something on the share table and creating something. So we went back to look. So the first thing I do have that Dr. Strochek's going to be trying to pull up is going to be the share table guidance that we received from the Massachusetts School Meals Program from the Department of Education. That does talk about, what you, to get started, you need to contact and obtain approval from your local school board, school health, Board of Health, regarding share tables, and then develop some standard operating procedures. So thank you, Dr. Strochek. And so therefore, and then talk about complying all local and state health, food safety codes. And then it talks about food safety and what we need to do, to keep the food healthy for people. And then in the green area, which is probably very hard for the people at home, is it talks about the allowable foods and the unallowable foods. So we did receive this, and I'm going to ask Dr. Strochek to open up the second document that we have there. So this is the first is the guidance that we received from the Department of Ed. And then what we did find, I can't even open it.
I have it open up there.
Okay, thank you. So then we found that back in March of 2018, we did talk about a sharing table standard operating procedure for starting with the elementary school. And that's where we, pre-pandemic, where we were getting to developing it. And it is a procedure, not a policy. So it's not something that we need to go with a policy, and it was a draft. First thing I do want to mention is this item did come in before we had Ms. Leal come on board, because she came in the fall of 2018. So what we feel that we should be doing at this time now is that Ms. Leal and myself should start talking about this. I don't think it's something that we're going to be able to do during the pandemic. We're very happy that we're going to be able to start serving some meals pre-COVID way. But I don't think we're at the position where we'd be able to do sharing tables. But what we wanted to report back to the committee is that we did start a draft, and we would like to work on that so that when we can, maybe January when masks, if that happens in January, so you know that we've had the mask mandate extended till mid-January. So we feel while we're in that stage, we're not going to be able to do anything. But as you asked me probably 2 meetings ago, where were we with that? That's where we're at right now. So, I'd like to look at it with Ms. Leal to discuss, what we were thinking. Does she think that that's going to work? Is it what she feels, what she's hearing from her group of school nutrition lunch people is acceptable? And then we do have to talk to the city Board of Health to make sure that what we're planning to do is acceptable to them and get that rolling again. So not that I have much more information except that, we found it.
Yay.
So, Christina, I don't know if you want to add any to that, but I know we just sprung this on you like just the other day saying, hey, look what I found.
No, the only thing that I would add is in previous discussions with our Board of Health is he is definitely not a fan. So I would want to make sure we have all the SOP and everything in place to present to get him on board, because in discussions previously, he was very
Hesitant.
about allowing share tables, I'll say.
I'm just going to go on record as saying we've been talking about this for a long time, and I appreciate the fact that Mr. Bill Burke, our head of our Board of Health, has his reservations. However, I know that the document that you shared is there because other school districts are doing this. And oftentimes, probably every time, when we sit at this table and we try to make decisions, we try to be guided by what is best for children. And we know that we have food insecurity here. And so this comment is really more directed towards Mr. Burke and/or anybody who's going to be working with him. I thank you in advance. I think it is an incredibly important thing, and not a meeting goes by, literally, that I don't get asked about this. And part of the reason why is because if we rewind the clock, right, back to when my Tyler was in high school and we did the first composting, we also started setting food aside. Instead of throwing perfectly good food into the garbage or into compost even, we started doing the share tables. So, without anybody's approval. Right? So, it's been around a long time. It's come and gone, and the need is there. And so I just want to try to really urge anybody and everybody who's going to be working on this to double down and fight that resistance. It would be easy to just say, oh yeah, you're right, there are challenges, and so let's just let it go. But I don't think we can do that, so.
I just want to let you know, it looks like we have maybe a hand up chat, I'm
We
not
have,
sure.
do we have a hand? Somebody put something in the chat.
Oh, okay. It's
And we're
not Mr.
looking-
Silva, it's not
we're
Mr. Silva
no,
trying to
he-
speak, okay.
He has a little hand that he puts up over there,
Okay.
it's yellow.
All right, yes, so I totally agree with that it's just, we just need to start off with, making sure that Ms. Leal knows what the rules and regulations are, and that we're not putting something in our standard operating procedure that violates any rules and regulations.
All right, and what would you like me to show on the screen next as we head into?
I'm
Oh,
gonna-
wait, Ms. Ducharme, tell me that answer and I'll get it ready while Ms. Ducharme asks her question, please.
I'm going to want you to grab the transfer number 405, I think it
Okay.
is, to make sure that we get that approved before.
Okay, Ms. Ducharme.
I was just curious because I had a hard time opening up those attachments. Might I be able to find them someplace else, like on the city's website, or could you share them as like a PDF or?
Yes, so everything that we present tonight, Ms. Bergeron will be putting on the website where the minutes and all the documents are.
I just couldn't access it when I clicked on it, so I was wondering if before you post it, could you just make sure that we can view it? Because I was really interested in the allowables, because I know that the Board of Health has some reservations about it, probably with good reason, but I agree with all the points that Lorinda just made. But I also saw prepackaged.
Oh, the two things that because what happened was I did put that out as a PDF of my PowerPoint so that Lorinda could be my banner.
Yeah. Yeah,
and,
totally. I
because
just
I can't
mostly
do
am
two
curious
things at one
about, like,
time.
it says packaged food.
Yeah, so
I'm
I
like,
will,
what is
I will
the
send
issue? I
out
just wanna
those two
understand.
attachments, the draft and the guidance to the whole committee. I'll send
Thank
it
you so
out
much.
as two documents.
Okay,
Because I
thanks.
wasn't really thinking about that the way we did it.
It's fine.
You
Yeah.
couldn't
No,
open.
it's awesome.
right,
Thank you.
So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is budget transfers,
Okay,
review
I'm
of
going to share my, I'm going to
revenues.
share my screen in just a minute. We have two hands up.
Okay.
And I'm going to remind our group that we have a hard stop at 7:30 because we have stacked meetings and we have to vote on this transfer. Mr. Silva, I believe I saw your hand before I saw Mr. Manzo's.
Yeah, just a quick comment. The note that I put in was just to post in the minutes as something to consider for future as for the buses.
Okay, so the chat is Mr. Silva's. I will look at that and possibly read it into the meeting minutes for Ms. Karan. Mr. Manzo?
Just a quick one. So in getting to Lindsay's kind of question, share tables, they generally or always only include food that's come from the food service, or is it also food that students bring in from
The
home?
first one.
The first
That's one of the restrictions. You can only share food that came from our food services, not food that you brought from home.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now I am sharing the document that is transfer number 405.
Yes, so I'm seeking permission last month I brought forward a large transfer. These were transfers that were not done before at that time. So these are all payroll transfers. In addition, taking the money out of the reserve for negotiations and putting into the proper accounts. So I'm seeking permission for that.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to accept this set of transfers from Ms. Sherburne.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Are there any questions for Ms. Sherburne on this set of transfers? All right, seeing none, we'll go around the room. A roll call vote. Mr. Silva,
Yes.
Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Ms. Ducharme,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
myself, yes. That passes 6-0. What would you like to see next, Jean?
So we can talk about the revenues. So I do not have any gifts to schools this month, unfortunately.
Rude.
And last month I had everybody accept all the grants that we had even written. So I don't have anything there. So the only two things I have left is the revenues and the expense report. So the revenues, as you can see here, the changes that we have. So pretty much there's nothing really earth-shattering at this point. The school choice, funding coming in, we did get our report on, from the October report that we're anticipating in $677,664. However, we have budgeted $705,676, but we were able to we had a reserve in the revolving account to cover that. The circuit breaker revenue report, we are anticipating a little bit higher in than we anticipated when we built the budget, and that would be used to offset any additional special education tuitions that may come forth. We are able to roll over a year's worth of the circuit breaker revenue into the next fiscal year. So if we do not need it this year, because we've budgeted $2,110,000, we can carry that over into the next fiscal year. We did receive some additional funding from the non-resident tuition, the SEVIS. Those students come to the high school for a year, and we're anticipating $38,000, and there is some additional funding coming in there. But right now, I'm saying that we're going to need to just use $4,250 from the revolving carryover. The education fund has received $350 this year, and that's from where people pay their taxes. They're able to check off a box to give additional money to the education, and that goes into a revolving fund. As far as all of the other, and the fees, we're anticipating what we're going to be receiving is coming in. I don't have any problems right now with that.
All right, before we go to the expenditure report, does anybody have any questions on the revenue report? Okay, Jean, here I come.
So the next report is going to be the year-to-date budget report that's coming up. And, excuse me, this report starts off in the first column of figures. We'll talk about the original appropriation. The second column talks about transfers and adjustments, and that would be any transfers that we've done in the fiscal year or any encumbrances that were carried over from the previous fiscal year into this fiscal year. And then the third column becomes the revised budget. That's the number that we'd be working off of in our accounting system this year. The fourth column would be what we've spent year to date. And then the next column would be encumbrances, which on the first page there aren't any because it's salary accounts. And then the the next column is the available budget based on those accounts on whatever date this was run, which this was run on 10/25. And then the final column tells us what the percentage used based on the revised budget and where we're at. There are some areas that we're still fine-tuning on where the payroll department is charging things and where I have them on my staffing pattern. So with my new budget and grants analyst, we're able to dig deeper into our accounting. So we've been able to match our staffing pattern to our budget to know that we feel, comfortable with everything is budgeted and charged appropriately. Now, with this week's payroll, we have made some changes where the payroll had it going to a previous year's account, and we're moving those. So next month, I feel that this is going to be a little bit better. In here, there's some places where there's negatives, which will be corrected when we do the budget transfer, expense transfers. I don't know if anybody has any particular question on any line. And by all means, because of our reduced meeting times, if anybody does have any questions on the expense, they always can send me a text, email, or give me a call.
It would be especially helpful if someone were to review it before the meeting and give you a heads up that they wanted to hear about the rationale for
Yes.
something that they had a question about during the meeting.
Yes,
But
and
we
I
can
do
do it
apologize
afterwards
that
as
it didn't
well.
get out until Monday, so I'm going to say, okay, I understand.
All right, but we can still send in questions
Yes.
afterwards if we were so inclined.
Exactly, yep.
All right, I'm looking around the room, including to you, Mr. Silva, on the computer. Does anybody have any questions on the expenditure report? I don't see any. And I do not have the agenda in front of me, but I believe this is the last item. No?
This is the last item.
This was the last item, and it does not require a vote.
No.
All right, in that case, I do have one, I'm looking around the room. Does anybody have anything else? I have one item I wish to revisit. Is Ms. Leal still with us? Yes. Relative to the switch back to the pre-COVID lunch line. Can we speak to COVID safety protocols as we make that change, especially in this building? And I'm looking at Dr. Chirocek while I say that, so I don't know which one, Dr. Chirocek or Christina, Ms. Leal, which one of you might want to, or
Let
maybe
her
you
go
want to
first.
tag team.
I'll let her go first. If I have anything else, or if you have any other follow-ups, I can
Okay.
answer them.
So I think it's not going to change that drastically from how we are currently serving. We're still having the 4 lunches that allows for the grades on each floor. So all we're really doing is offering more choices to the students, still keeping it pretty consistently spread out between the serving line and the 2 grab and goes area, and then just going to sit down like they are. So I really don't see much of a change other than offering more options to the students and making it more presentable by serving it on trays as opposed to the bags at the middle school.
So you don't anticipate that, for instance, children would be more bunched up while they waited for their hot entrees than if they had walked past a table and grabbed a bag and went out to their seating?
Well, currently they're still having to go through a line and punch in their number at a register. That's how we've been doing it all year. So then it's not like it was last year where they just grabbed a bag. They still have to go through the line. Because we are still offering vegetables and milk, they still go through the line and take what they like. So it's just kind of giving them different options at different locations instead of the same thing at each location now.
Okay.
And they're continuing to wear masks while they're in the line. They don't take the masks off till they sit down. I think one of the advantages of this building in the work, kudos to Mrs. Oliver and the administrative team here for figuring out how to allow more lunches in a day, which, one of the challenges is that in the past years before COVID, we had one whole grade level in one cafeteria. So we're now having 4 lunches instead of just 2 lunches, serving in both cafeterias so we can spread students out. And they're only unmasked when they're in their seats, and the seats have there's more spacing available for that. So, and I just want to, in terms of the elementaries, they're remaining in the bags because they are still committed to eating outside whenever they can. And that it's just an easier fit at the elementary level. We are all working on designs at each one of the buildings for inclement weather, which we're getting a lot of practice this week with our inclement weather. And so, but the bag lunches at the elementaries are really because they're committed to that outdoor, because there's nobody vaccinated in the elementary schools yet.
And
We're
so
gonna
is
say
that,
yet?
I'm sorry, is that to imply then that here in this building, no team or classroom is scheduled to eat outside?
I do
any
not,
longer?
right now, they're all scheduled, I think, I'm not going to answer that because I don't want to give the wrong answer. I believe that they're scheduled in the cafeterias, though. So but I would have to double check that with Mrs. Oliver. But it's my understanding that here in the middle school, they're all eating in the cafeteria at different times.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm looking around the room one last time. Yes, Mr. Manzo?
So I just wanted to take a moment to just remind eighth graders and their parents that applications for Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical High School are now open. So if you're an eighth grader who's interested in applying to the program or a parent of an eighth grader, applications are live right now, and they're due January 10th. And further, if you're interested, there's 2 open houses on November 20th for parents and students, 8th grade students who are interested in going to or looking at the tech. You have to pre-register for those open houses. So more information is on the Essex Tech website.
Fantastic. And I'll just put a little plug in here for those who don't know. Mr. Manzo not only sits on this committee with us, but serves as a Beverly representative to the school committee for the Essex. I was going to say its real name, but I'm just going to say tech. I'm going to not challenge myself to get that wrong. All right. Looking around the room one last time. With 4 minutes to spare before our next meeting, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. So, thank you, Ms. Ducharme. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. All those, we have to do a roll call. Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Ms. Ducharme.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Myself, yes, that passes 6-0. And Ms. Coran, I'm going to come over and show you what was in the chat. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, BevCam.
Welcome, everyone. I see 7:31 on the clock. Tonight is our Beverly School Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. We are meeting in a hybrid fashion model using a remote meeting platform provided at no cost to our district with some captioning. This will allow for some remote participation and for public access to the open portions of our meeting. We are recording tonight, and we are being broadcast and streamed by our friends at BevCam. So thank you, BevCam. On June 16th, 2021, the governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, which, among other things, allows public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until April 1st, 2022. This act specifically suspends the need for a quorum and the chair to physically be present, although we have both physically present this evening. And it asks our body to use technical methods to allow for safe public access. We would always encourage viewers to utilize the BevCam streaming option if possible. It is the least amount of bandwidth and gives you instant access to our meetings. It also allows you to rewind and replay and then view them later as well. As I mentioned, tonight is a committee of the whole meeting, and this means we do not have an agenda item for addressing the body during our meeting. We do have on our agenda an executive session planned, and we will not be returning to open session. So joining us today are members of the school committee and various members of the district administration and leadership teams. I will conduct a roll call and attendance for the record because we are using this remote meeting application and we want to make sure we display all participants. Ms. Visnick, I'm letting 3 more in.
Ms. Abel, I'm not seeing, maybe because you're the meeting owner, I'm not seeing the request to let anybody in. I'm sorry, I'm not
That's all right.
helping
2
you.
of them are here in person, so I don't think that they missed a thing. Just Ms. Blanchard maybe missed a little bit there. Okay. Please do remember that anything that you provide, whether it be audio or video, on this platform does become part of the meeting record, and as such, you should use your mute functionality to prevent background noises. Similarly, you can turn off your video if you're participating remotely. I would now like to conduct that roll call that I mentioned to confirm that the participants can both hear and see us. I will start in the room. We have our recording secretary, Liz Karan, with us. We have Dr. Sue Chirocek, Ms. Jean Sherburne, Ms. Lorinda Visnick, Ms. Kimberly Coelho, Ms. Karen Robinson, Dr. Kenan McKenzie. I'm Rachel Abel. We are also joined by Mayor Michael Cahill and Mr. John Mulady. Our leadership team includes Bethany Splansky, Aaron Brown, and Dr. Flaherty, Dorothy Flaherty. On our remote platform, we're joined by Dr. Andre Morgan.
Here.
Thank you. And I saw Miss Sweeney. No, not Miss Sweeney. I see Miss Amy Blanchard. Sorry.
Here.
Okay. So that's Amy Blanchard. And we have our nurse leader, Miss Jody Elders.
Here.
Okay, Miss Jody Elder. And I see Miss Christina Leo, our Director of Food Service, is still with us.
Here.
And I believe all the other entries are just people that are going to be sharing or are viewing the materials online. Okay, so we have finished our roll call. We are all physically present, so we do not need to do a roll call this evening until we reach the vote for executive session. So with that, we can actually go right into the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask Ms. Visnick to lead us in that pledge this week.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. Our two first items on our agenda are the approval of meeting records. We have a set of our committee of the whole from September 22nd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve that set?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. McKenzie. Were there any edits or corrections that anyone would like to bring to the table? I'm not seeing any suggestions, so all those in favor of accepting the 9/22/21? Okay, that's a 6-0-1. The abstention due to absence from that meeting, from the main part of the meeting, right? Okay, and then we had September 29th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those records?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. And a second? Thank you, Mr. Milady. Same question. Are there any edits or corrections that want to be laid on the table? Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving September 29th, 2021? We have 7-0. Thank you. Dr. Chorchak, right over to you.
Just gonna get this up to share. And why can't I get the present? There it is. All right. My report is not as lengthy as usual tonight, but I do have a few things that I wanted to give as an update. First, I have an update, the same regular update that I have been bringing you in regards to COVID-related information that I've been sharing each week, and I have a small update on our vaccination booster clinic. So this is just a review, as I've been presenting each time. This was updated on 10/16. This is the vaccination rates citywide. This is not grade level specific for students in our schools. Again, we had a slight increase, ages 12 to 15 in Beverly. This is receiving one dose. This is what's reported by mass.gov. We have 83% of our 12 to 15-year-olds in Beverly at having one dose, and we have 56% of our 16 to 19s. Again, this is updated as of 10/16. I do not have an update to this. Ms. Elder and I had a conversation today. This is pretty extensive for us to go in. We have to mine each one of the dashboards separately in order to find out. But we said that we decided that we'll come forward as frequently as we can, at least once a month. And so at our next regular committee, I'll bring forward a new update. Again, so we're running, a little bit higher when we look at individual students who are actually sitting in our schools, and those rates are here. And this is helpful to look at it this way because our 10 to 15s, we don't know whether they're in the 7th, 8th, or 9th grade, and then our 15s to 19s, which grades are they in? So this is helpful, and we're going to update this for you for the next meeting. Our district dashboard, we continue to monitor our district dashboard. It is updated every Tuesday and Friday. It keeps a running tally of the counts of active cases that we have. So those would be cases that are reported between the Tuesday and Friday, and then Friday to Tuesday. And then we keep a running total so that if anyone's interested about the information as to how many cases have been in each one of the schools, they get to see it there. This is the 7-day update, and I get these from the Board of Health. Teresa Kirsch sends these to me every Monday, and these are the averages. So you can see we ran a little high the last 2 weeks that are listed, and then we've kind of gone down a little bit, which is nice. I think that's a trend that we're seeing and hearing. So in particular, I think I wanted to address how are we managing and what are we doing around cases in the school. This is not a new slide. It discusses Crush the Curve. That's the testing program that the Department of Ed is sponsoring that we're participating in. I did have a couple of questions, so I thought it would be best to kind of just address them here in the meeting. I know for the last 18 months, I've said we've had no in-school transmission, but we did have our first case of in-school transmission over the past couple of weeks. We had a particular team at the middle school in grade 5 where we saw an outbreak. It happened, and we continued to monitor it through these test and stay programs. It got to a point where we had a high number of cases, and so we made a decision. I'm going to actually turn it over to Ms. Elder and let her walk us through what this mitigation strategy looks like and how we addressed it, because think her nurse language is better than mine, so. Ms. Alba, you're there?
Sure, I'm here. Thank you, Dr. Trocheck. So in terms of the grade 5 team where we saw a cluster, starting from the beginning, starting from the index case, which was the first case that we identified, that individual came to school and came into the health office feeling unwell with symptoms of COVID. So that particular student underwent the symptomatic testing protocol, where they were tested in the health office and tested positive for COVID. Immediately, that student was isolated. Family was notified, and the student was sent home to begin their COVID isolation process. In the meantime, as a group, we were able to identify the close contacts to that individual student and contact those families. I personally made the phone calls to those families. And those students were enrolled in the test and stay protocol, which, of course, you've heard this from the beginning of the school year. This protocol allows the students to be tested each school day, and if negative, they're able to stay in school. We continued that process over several days, and we then came to the long weekend. And when the students returned to school on Tuesday, that cohort who was in the test and stay protocol underwent testing. That would have been, I think it was day 5 of their testing. That morning, some students in that test and stay group tested positive in our health office through this protocol. So immediately, the administrative team at the middle school and district-wide administration, including Dr. Trocheck, was notified. We began our process of what to do with this. It's important to note that simultaneously, as we were doing this, there were additional students from that grade 5 team who were not close contacts, but who came to school and feeling unwell and came into the health office sick. Those students underwent the symptomatic testing and were in fact positive. So at that point in time, we realized that we had a small cluster. It happened on Tuesday morning. Dr. Trocheck spoke with the Board of Health, spoke with DESE, and the decision was made to send our students home for quarantine, both to reduce their exposure to one another and to the grade 5 class, but also to reduce exposure to other students at Beverly Middle School. I think that's it. Dr. Trocheck, is there anything else you'd like me to explain?
No, I appreciate that. I think that what the kind of the point that I would love to make to everyone is, while we did experience a cluster, I think that once again, the test and stay and the symptomatic testing worked really well. It allowed us to identify and sort of isolate it to the one team. And I think I can't say enough for the quick reaction of the nursing staff at the middle school, and 100% would love to thank the parents of the students on that team for their partnership and their quick response and their cooperation as we, kind of were able to address it. And I think what could have been a larger problem was sort of maintained and isolated into just one area of one neighborhood. So it's really important that we wanted to take the opportunity to explain to everyone. I know that all of you had received my update, so it's not news to you, but for some people that are at home watching, and I think a further explanation sometimes help us better understand what's going on. There was another question about notification. I just want to be clear, we called individually every single parent on that team, as well as issued a written notification to every single parent on that team. Up until, on Tuesday. So I think there was a little confusion When the students went home and were quarantined, if additional cases came up, we send notifications of exposure, not notifications of cases. So we would send a notification home on Tuesday if a child was exposed. However, if a future case comes up on a Friday and that student hadn't been in school for 3 days, we wouldn't send another notification that another case came up. There were in total 13 students on a team of 45 that tested positive over the 2-week period. 3 or 4, really there was one case that happened, and then it was Tuesday, and we had the majority of the cases identified Tuesday and Wednesday. And then we did have one case that was identified. Finally, I also should take a moment and thank the city for partnering with us to bring in the COVID testing opportunity on a Sunday afternoon. We had a testing unit, a mobile unit, come here, and so for all of the families that were impacted, they had the opportunity to come in and receive a free PCR testing, and we did identify one more case through that process. But so I don't know if anybody has any questions while Ms. Elder's on the phone, or
Ms. Visnick?
I actually believe the mayor's hand was up before mine. I would like to defer.
Okay, Mayor Cahill, thanks.
Thanks. Could you just give an update of that was coming out of, if I'm correct, it was coming out of Columbus Day weekend?
Yeah.
So where are we with that class?
they're all back in.
Everyone's back?
Jody, I think everyone has returned, correct?
I think everyone has returned. I'd have to look at my dates for the one particular student that was identified that weekend through the PCR testing. If they're not back, they will be coming back when they complete their isolation.
Thank you.
But the majority of the students are back.
And I also would say because we worked with DESE and the local Board of Health, we were able to offer remote instruction for those students. So those students were able to completely participate for all of the days that they were out, unless they were not feeling well. And so that was a unique opportunity that, working through the Department of Ed, they gave permission for that to happen during that time.
Well, let me just thank Mrs. Elder and her team, and Mrs. Oliver and your team, Dr. Trochik, for
Thank you.
handling that so well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Visnick?
Thank you. My question is around how are we identifying close contacts, or why are there close contacts if the children are wearing their masks at school, and when they're maskless, they're supposed to be spread apart to eat?
So they are, I'll go back to the original definition of a close contact. A close contact is anyone that's within 6 feet. And they're exempt if they're wearing a mask and they're not within 3 feet for 15 or more minutes. In this particular group, there were students that were identified that were closer than the 3 feet for an extended period, whether they were working in a small group or something like that. That's where it was. In terms of, we have gone back to the teachers that we're fortunate. These 2 teachers were amazing and very helpful. And as we tried to sort of dissect an autopsy, how is it, what could have happened? I would say that, again, we really encourage students to stay home when they're not well. And so that's a piece of it. But we did take a close look at all the protocols and make sure that we looked through. I believe that it was raining on those 2 days, so I think there was probably a longer period of time in the classroom than students were used to, and so we probably need to make sure that we're just revisiting that.
Follow up, Ms. Visnick?
And when you say that 13 out of the 45 on that team tested positive, then if we were to back up to your COVID dashboard report, then of the number 29 in the second column, year-to-date cases, 13 of those 29 came out of that 5th grade team.
Correct.
In that little cluster.
Yep.
And do we, that 13 gets reported to us from some medical somebody? It's not self-reporting.
Each one of those would have been identified either through our test and stay, through the PCR, but it always gets reported to the Board of Health. So it always eventually ends up, yes, on a Board of Health.
So
on
if
the Board of
someone
Health.
said to us that the number was higher than 13, what would we say to that? It can't be.
I'm gonna.
I think I would I can speak to that, and I can say that all of the cases that we monitor in any of the schools go through the Board of Health, are listed in Maven, which is the Board of Health electronic health website. So I think it simply wouldn't be true if there were more than 13, or it couldn't happen. The Board of Health didn't know about it.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Yes. Mayor Cahill?
If I could just point out, and it wouldn't necessarily have happened here, but any choice student from another community would ultimately show up in their community's count through their Board of Health.
Except for they would be on the Maven site that we have because they're enrolled in our school. So we would.
So they'd show up in two places.
Yeah. So remember when we returned to school, they had to have a negative test to return on day 7, or they had to wait a longer period. So Jody is completely aware of either whether they got their negative test or whether they awaited the entire quarantine period. So the only really thing that could have happened is someone that never got tested and decided to wait out the 14 days, and we never have any data about whether or not they were positive because they didn't get tested.
Dr. McKenzie?
I just want to get clarification on the quarantine students. Are they also tested if they have to wait out the entire quarantine again, or is it?
So
only
Jody, do you want to explain the 3 options to return?
Sure thing. So if you're diagnosed as having COVID, you need to isolate for 10 days, and you can return to school or public life on day 11 if your symptoms have resolved. If you are exposed as a close contact, you needs to quarantine for a total of 7 full days, with an option to be tested on or after day 5. So for this particular group of students, that day 5 was Sunday. I think it was October 17th, or that Sunday of that long weekend. The following weekend. And so the testing was arranged for all of those students to be tested on Sunday, and they could return to school on day 8. If you opted not to test, which you can certainly do, those families needed to stay out for a total of 10 days, return on day 11. And we had students in all 3 of those categories.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. Jody, thank you so much for everything you do. That was so helpful to hear. That explanation is very clear, and I don't know, you're really appreciated.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question. So I feel like lots of colds are going around right now, or I guess, do you have advice of when, I think it's important, when do you keep your child home and when do you send them? Like what's the protocol now?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question. So, and we've certainly been fielding a lot of those questions as cold and flu season are sort of getting underway. We have the sick day guidelines listed on the website. These were sick day guidelines that predated COVID. So if a student has a fever or a combination of several cold symptoms, they should stay home. A sniffle or post-nasal drip, it's hard to know. I always defer. I've been a pediatric nurse for a very long time, and parents know best. Parents know their kids best. And I think that the families in Beverly have done such a great job, certainly over last year, really partnering with us and keeping their students home when they were sick. We've seen a little shift this year with students coming to school unwell. So I think the obvious, fevers, several symptoms, several cold symptoms, and certainly to defer to the district website where we have our sick day guidelines posted, if that helps you.
Thank you.
Sure. And Mr. Milady?
Thank you very much. So now I have two questions, so thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. One of my questions is in regards to the testing that we did on that Sunday, or I'm sorry, the Sunday over the long weekend. Is that a possibility that we could try and have some more of those clinics? It seems that the parents are trying their best, but if we as a city can provide that testing opportunity, it could be a way to catch more possible cases or answer some questions like, no, this actually is a cold, because same idea.
We absolutely can. I think prior to the recent one, the last handful of testing dates offered, people weren't coming to.
Right.
But I think, the pendulum shifting again, we're getting into indoor season more and more. So we absolutely can do more of those clinics,
I mean, I think we had it was staged outside on the outdoor learning area. It was, they have a mobile unit now that it seems that they even have more, I think, of a facility to work out of than they did when we were doing them in the gym. And it was actually quite simple. I think families were very grateful for the opportunity to be able to kind of get at the ease of testing and just sort of the easing their own. And they also, the good part of it was they came with their whole family, and so they were able to, sort of test everyone in the family at the same time. So it is an opportunity, and we can talk some more about a possible date. I think post Halloween might be a nice idea, to think about something. So, Cataldo Ambulance has been a good partner with us in sort of putting that up for us. So. I know.
I think if I could just add to that, Mr. Milady, I agree with you. I think parents are really trying their best and really partnering with the nursing staff in all of the buildings. It's not trivial to get a PCR COVID test these days, and we tend to send families to the Stop the Spread site in Salem, and for obvious reasons, nobody wants to go to Salem during the month of October. So it's been a little challenging.
Did you have a second question?
No.
Those were both them.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Were there any more questions at the table? Thank you, Ms. Elder.
Yeah, thank you, Jody.
Thank you. Sure.
I think I just have one last one. This is just an update for you. The Commissioner Riley held a press conference, a press release, that he has extended the mask requirement through at least January 15th of 2022. And this really is to coincide with the expected announcement that vaccines will be available for children ages 5 to 11 in the coming weeks. So this extension really allows time for that elementary population to hopefully get some vaccines and be able to kind of get through that period of time. And then just a final update, we did hold, we talked about our COVID testing clinic. We also staged a vaccination booster clinic on Friday, October 22nd. This was a Pfizer-only clinic. We administered 100 doses of the booster to staff. This was, we sent out a link specifically to staff, and it was very well appreciated by our staff. And so that was very successful. We have a second clinic scheduled for November 5th. We will have both Pfizer and Moderna available at the November 5th booster clinic. We will again send the link out to staff, but we are also in conversation. If the FDA approves the 5 to 11 age group, we can include students. It would be available to be able to do something like that. So again, we're waiting on the approval, but that's a Friday, November 5th date that we will be doing. We set it up in the middle school gym. And it went quite smoothly, so it was a great opportunity.
Ms. Visnick, I saw a hand.
Just one thing, Dr. Trocek, if, just to clarify, if the FDA approves the 5 to 11, then parents must consent for their
Yes.
children to be vaccinated.
Absolutely. And we'll send out a separate link for families. They would have to pre-register and do all of that. Right?
Correct. They would have to pre-register and provide written consent.
Go ahead, Ms. Visnick, has a question?
The word booster is very emphasized there. What if somebody who didn't have any shots yet, can they get their first shot at that clinic?
They can. And we did have some, I think we did have a couple people have their first shot, and obviously for the 5 to 11s, it would be a first shot too. So, but yes, they can come, they can sign up and get their first shot there. there are some people, I think, who will be coming back for their second that, that had the right waiting period. So, yes, the vaccine is available, and the group, this is the same mobile vaccination clinic. What's it called? What's the name of the group that we're using?
Vaccinate RX.
Vaccinate RX. So it's the same. We've been utilizing this mobile clinic for all of our vaccination clinics. They did the Friday Night Lights, and so they'll be available.
And how are the people in that unit determining eligibility for boostering?
So, yeah, you have to bring your
Is that
card.
English?
Yeah, so you have to bring your card. So, depending on what booster you, first of all, there is an ability to mix, and you are allowed to mix, but you bring your vaccination card. They are looking to make sure, first of all, 6 months have gone by since your vaccination, and you attest to your eligibility in terms of if you're in a profession that has been approved for it in that way, so.
And this company or vendor, if you will, uploads into the Massachusetts immunization site. So everybody appears on the MIIS site once they've been vaccinated or boosted.
Ms. Robinson?
Do we have a time for that?
The last one was held from 2 to 5. I think we're on the same timeline.
I think so, 2 to 5 or 3 to 6.
Thank you.
And the doses, if they are available for our 5 to 11s, will be the third of a dose of Pfizer only.
They're licensed to do what they do, so they know. I know that the Moderna booster is different. They're only doing a half a shot in Moderna, and the Pfizer is the full booster. So they'll be doing
But those will be
and organizing
available.
all of
I
that.
heard that the governor was
Yeah.
lining those up. Okay. Any more questions for the superintendent on her report?
That's all I have.
Okay. Our next agenda item is to bring forward the end of cycle summative evaluation for our superintendent. This is again for the school year 2020. So let me do this right. Yes, 2020 to 2021, last year. So we're playing catch up. We got the year before that out of the way, and now we're doing this one so that we can, in a future meeting, hear the superintendent's goals for this year. Thank you, everyone, for collaborating on this evaluation. I'll give a quick summary for those at home. There were areas of progressing towards goals, assessing performance on standards, and then there were sections where we looked at focus areas, focus indicators, and the collection of us acting as one body has rated the areas. There's some stratification in some of the areas, and we can talk about that a little bit. But in general, we found that Dr. Turchek had an average rating of met for all of the goals. And in the performance on standards, I am seeing that we landed on proficient for all of those categories. The performance standards are instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. What we have is an amalgamation of all the comments received from the body in each of these areas. I won't read them all. This will become a public record if we adopt this as it is this evening. But I did want to just highlight that there were a few areas where, for instance, in the performance goals for student learning, we have average ratings of met as well as exceeded. So student learning goals met, professional practice goals exceeded, district improvement goals exceeded, district improvement goal 2 met. But then again, there's some stratification in a variety of comments in each of those sections. We can look through some of the other sections in this report, and we find other areas where the average rating was exemplary, for instance, in the management and operations standard number 2, as well as proficient, giving an overall of proficient. So just in general, our action this evening would be to accept or amend this report and adopt it as our formal evaluation for the superintendent for 2020 and to 2021. I'm wondering if I might first have a motion on this document.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Bisnick, and that's a motion to adopt. Okay, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. McKenzie. Did anyone wish to highlight or offer any remarks about the full evaluation? Again, we had time to look at this ahead of time. We don't necessarily need to step through it all together. If there are no concerns, we could go ahead and vote to approve this.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yep.
I think it's kind of cool if you look at our data, right? If you're a data nerd, right, and we look at our own bell curve, I think we were very close, right? And I think that there are times that we have really had to work hard to come to a consensus, but I think in general, the fact that we're all pretty close about our ratings here is a testament to the overall rating and how we feel that we're doing as a district under the leadership of Dr. Trocheck. So I think that's cool to see the data. When you look at a column, you see there's 6 of us in one column and one in a column on either side of that. That's pretty telling.
Right. And to just one moment. To avoid open meeting law, we obviously have our executive secretary compile the results. And I have to admit, a few of these things, oh, I wish I had said that. Oh, that's what I said. Oh, wait, no, I didn't write that. But somebody else had the same perception and observations this year. So thank you, Ms. Visdick. Mr. Milady.
Sure. Just want to say it's really nice to have the opportunity to congratulate you and to give some positive feedback for the hard work that you've been doing. So I really enjoyed this round of evaluations.
Thank you, Mr. Milady. Mayor Cahill.
Thanks, Madam President. And I think I just want to add, wow to the last 20 plus months, right? And, everybody in this world has had a lot of things to deal with. And with that said, I'm not sure anyone more so than our educators have had more expectations and more needs to evaluate and adjust and reevaluate and readjust. And I know the word pivot is one that we all thought was about Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain in the low post, but boy, that's aging myself. But I think I'm just trying to say that thank you, Dr. Trocheck, and by thanking you, we're thanking every employee in our district, and the fact that. That we've collectively and with your leadership have been able to navigate this, I think at a very high level as a district, and the fact that so many of the things that we need to focus on that are about student performance and progress and all, we've been able to keep focusing on even in the midst of all that's been tossed in front of all of us and in front of all of our educators. So thank you so very much for all of that. It's been a time, and you folks have performed incredibly well. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we have this in front of us. I think it sounds like we're in general agreement about what the report for the evaluation for 2020-2021 is all about. Are we willing to adopt this? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay. This will be the official version.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Trocheck. Okay, so a next agenda item, I wanted to have an opportunity before I bring forward a suggested calendar for the spring 2022 school committee meetings, just to evaluate how our fall schedule has been going. We've been backing up the CISL and regular school committee meetings and the F&F and committee of the whole meetings, so that we might have a few nights off to take care of other items. That has meant that the CISL and F&F are limited to an hour at this point with a 6:30 start. So I'm just putting it out there for feedback, whether that schedule seems to work. It was something that we had started to talk about pre-pandemic, and then of course we started meeting every week for 4 to 6 hours a night. Some ideas that I had just having observed the CISL meeting and the F&F, it seems like we could use about 15 more minutes each time at least. So I'll just put it out to the body to direct the chair a little bit to what we'd like to see in our draft calendar for the spring.
So, this would be a shocker. I have the same sandwich for lunch every single day. I don't do well with change. But that being said, I think it's worth to at least try out the rest of the school year. It's almost like if you switch if your period gets shortened in class, you just have to adapt the lesson a little bit. So I feel like maybe that's something we need to work on. And then maybe have the next committee revisit that in the spring. But the stacking is a little bit tough, and sometimes I feel like we miss out on some of the Q&As and things like that. But I would say we should at least try to continue it moving forward to the spring.
Ms. Visnick?
I also wish to continue to stack, if for no other reason than I cannot even tell you how wonderful it is to think about having a night off. So, today, as you know, I had to come from my office in Waltham, and I barely got here on time, and Miss Robinson was going to chair F&F if I didn't get here on time. But even then, I think it's the trade-off is more than worth it. I do feel a little rushed, a little cramped in that hour, but I also think we can be efficient, I think, for the most part. Getting back into running the Zoom, which you're helping with, and calling on people and being efficient and running our meetings. I think we should keep trying for an hour, because if we go 15 more minutes, then either we have to get here that much earlier, and if I'm coming from Waltham, that's a real challenge for me, or we make this body, the whole of us, start 15 minutes later. Mr. BevCam has to stay that much later. It's hard to stay out that much later at night. So I too would like us to try to continue to not only stack, but stay on the hour, and I'm throwing it down to myself that I just need to be more efficient. And I think that I don't want to say that Jean doesn't have important things to say, because numbers are very important, but I feel like curriculum has maybe been more rushed to get through their content. So if you wanted to go 15 more minutes, I would defer to that.
I think we should hear from Dot, not to throw her under the bus, Dot, but you make those beautiful packets and agendas. Mike?
I think just when we have a presentation, we'll try to limit some of the other things that are on the agenda, but I think we can make it to an hour. And then if we have a big presentation like MCAS coming up, we won't put something else on the agenda. So we can definitely keep tweaking, and it is just about that 10 or 15 minutes, and we can make that work.
Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. I think it's also helpful for, even if you're not on a committee and you have to be here at 7:30, it's easier to come in and listen and just be part of it, even if you're just in the audience as part of, if I'm on finance, but I come and listen to curriculum, and it's just more, I don't know, it's better than watching it on a Zoom.
Thank you. I would echo, I think that was one of the reasons that we were contemplating that pre-pandemic, was that it gave an opportunity for the members who aren't on the subcommittee to sit in the audience, to get the presentations, and to be more deeply informed if they wish to be, rather than wait for that committee report all the way at the next regular school committee meeting, which sometimes is a ways off. I don't know that we necessarily need to vote on it, but I'm getting a sense that we want to keep trying the stacked meetings and keep it 6:30, 7:30 starts. Okay, we will put a calendar together for one of our upcoming meetings. I think maybe November already. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe December. We'll figure out when we're going to bring that calendar forward, but we'll start looking at that now. And then the last item on my report was just to remind folks of some upcoming meetings and dates, because November does have our Thanksgiving holiday. That means that our CISL and regular school committee meeting will be on November 10th. And then that next week on the 17th, we'll have F&F and Committee of the Whole. So those two will be back to back, but then we'll be off that Wednesday, which is a half day for our students before Thanksgiving. So just make sure you note that in your calendar. I was a little surprised. Oh, those are very close together, but I remember our discussion that we preferred to do that rather than meet on that half day before the holiday. We also are actively engaged in negotiations meetings with Unit C. We had our first IBB session today at 3 o'clock at McEwen School. We're going to continue that conversation tomorrow at 3 o'clock at McEwen School. And then our third planned date would be November 29th. And so those are the dates that I have for November at this point. And I think we've reached the point of the meeting where the chair, and I need to just look at my own screen here. Let me share my screen. The chair would move to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for purposes 7 and 2, and not to return to open session. For purposes 7, that would be to review and approve our executive session minutes from September 29th, 2021 Committee of the Whole Executive Session. And for purpose number 2, to discuss strategy with respect to, in preparation for negotiations with our non-union personnel and or to conduct bargaining sessions or contract negotiations. That's not exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do our preparations. So the chair is making that motion.
Second.
And Ms. Bisnick is giving that a second. We do need to do a roll call vote. So I will just go around the table. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
John Mulady,
Yes.
Lorinda Visnick,
Yes.
Kimberly Coelho,
Yes.
Karen Robinson,
Yes.
Ken-Ann McKenzie,
Yes.
and Rachel Abel, yes, 7-0. The time is 8:18 p.m. We are now adjourned from our open session and will be entering into executive session. Thank you, BevCam, as always, for broadcasting us, and thank you all for watching at home and being present. Thanks.